At Thanksgiving dinner, my mother raised her champagne flute, looked at me in my military uniform, and snarled, "You are a stain on this family, get out." They didn't know they had just handed a soldier the key to her own prison. My name is Sergeant Jaime North, and the air in my family's Beacon Hill brownstone was always a deception. The scent of roasted turkey and sage was a mask for the familiar dread that settled in my stomach every Thanksgiving. And this year, tucked in my pocket, was a letter confirming my promotion to sergeant. It was a fragile shield, a hope for a sliver of their approval, as we sat at the gleaming mahogany table. My mother, Eleanor, raised her champagne flute. She sang the praises of my sister Clarissa's law career and my brother Spencer's finance deals. Then her gaze, as cold as ice, landed on me. "And of course there's Jaime," she sighed. "With her marketing job and her little weekend army hobby." "A hobby? That's what she called my sworn oath to this country." I clung to my news. "Mom," I said, my voice wavering slightly, "I was promoted to sergeant." Eleanor laughed, a cold, brittle sound that shattered the room. "Promoted to what end, Jaime? So you can waste your life playing in the mud with other failures?" I poured a fortune into giving you the best education. "And for what? So you could become the embarrassment of this family?" Her voice rose, her composed mask cracking. She was on her feet now, her face twisted with rage. "You ungrateful child, you are a stain on this family. Get out." A deafening silence fell. My father stared at his plate. My siblings stared at the tablecloth, their complicity screaming louder than any accusation. My military training took over. My spine straightened. I pushed my chair back and stood. I looked at each of their averted faces, turned, and walked out the heavy oak door into the cold Boston night. I had been cast out, but for the first time. The chilling air felt more like a welcoming embrace than the suffocating warmth of the home I had just left. In the numbing days that followed, curled up on my best friend Maya's sofa, I understood the Thanksgiving dinner was the climax of a 28-year war of attrition. My mind replayed the evidence, the high school art trophy I won, my proudest achievement that I later found discarded in the basement trash, deemed unworthy of a space in our home. The weary pity on my mother's face when I enlisted in the Army National Guard after failing to get into Yale. "Is this what you choose when you can't compete with your siblings?" she had sighed. My service was not a commitment, it was a consolation prize. With the support of Maya and a therapist, I began to rebuild. I found a small studio apartment, threw myself into my marketing job, and started dating a wonderful man named Leo. An architect who saw all the parts of me, the soldier and the artist, and thought they fit together perfectly. I was building a life, a quiet joy on my own terms. Then the past came calling, a summons, disguised as a plea from my father, to attend Spencer's engagement party because my mother wasn't well. It was a transparent manipulation to pull me back into their orbit, to force me back into the role of the family scapegoat. My polite refusal was not well received. Eleanor didn't call me to yell, she did something far worse. She escalated, she bypassed me entirely and went straight for the foundation of my new life. She called the commanding officer of my National Guard unit, Sergeant North. My CO later told me, his voice a mixture of confusion and concern, "I received a call today from a woman identifying herself as your mother. She made allegations that you were having psychological issues, that you were unstable. She requested that the unit intervene." I listened, a silent, ice-cold fury building inside me. My mother wasn't just trying to control me anymore, she was actively trying to sabotage my career, my reputation, my honor. This was no longer a family disagreement, this was an act of war. After the call with my CO, my rage crystallized. I wasn't a scared daughter anymore, I was Sergeant North, and I was about to establish a new chain of command. With my boyfriend Leo as a witness, I recorded my final phone call to my mother, Eleanor. I began, using her first name for the first time in my life. The smug triumph in her voice vanished. "You called my commanding officer," I stated. "You slandered my name." That action crossed every conceivable line. Her shock turned to shrieking rage. "How dare you? I did what I did to help you." "No," I cut her off, my voice as cold and sharp as a shard of ice. "You did that because you are no longer able to control me. From this moment forward, you have no authority in my life. If you or anyone from this family violates these terms, I will take immediate legal action. Is that understood?" This was not a threat, it was a promise. I hung up, severing a 28-year-old toxic cord. But the war wasn't over. My brother Spencer, racked with guilt, gave me a USB drive containing the family trust fund statements. The numbers told a story more brutal than any insult. For a decade, my mother had been systematically embezzling my inheritance from my grandfather to fund the lavish lifestyles of my golden child sibling. This was no longer just about emotional abuse. It was a crime. I agreed to one final family meeting, but on my terms, a sterile, anonymous conference room downtown, stripped of the backdrop of their Beacon Hill brownstone. They seemed smaller. Their power evaporated. My father tried to placate. My sister Clarissa accused me of greed. My mother feigned tears. It was Spencer who broke the spell. "Stop, Mom," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "We all know where that money came from. We took it. She's not wrong. We are." His confession sucked the oxygen from the room, the final, fatal puncture. In their hypocrisy, I stood up. "I don't need your apologies," I said, my voice steady. "I just want what is legally mine." I demanded full repayment and that they all sign a legally binding NDA, effectively erasing me from their lives. I wasn't just getting my money back, I was taking my entire life back. The money was wired within 30 days. The signed NDA arrived via courier. The war was over, but instead of triumph, a profound emptiness settled over me. I was grieving the family I should have had, the love I was never given. Slowly, with Leo's support, I began to heal. My father and I started a fragile, honest reconciliation. My brother Spencer, now in therapy himself, rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. One night, I took a box of old birthday cards and family photos, artifacts of my painful past, and burned them in a metal basin on my balcony. As I watched the last remnants turn to smoke and disappear into the night sky, I felt no anger, only a quiet sense of peace. I was releasing myself from the weight of their judgment. A year later, I stood in a light-filled studio in Boston's South End. This was the Warrior's Easel, a free art workshop I founded for military veterans, funded by the money I had reclaimed. Here, soldiers who carried invisible wounds found a quiet language for their experiences, a path back to themselves. This was my true inheritance. I had taken the pain inflicted upon me and transformed it into a safe harbor for others. My new family, Leo, Maya, my brother, my father, would gather at our apartment on Sundays. There was no judgment, no competition, only the warm, genuine affection of a family built on choice and respect. The best revenge wasn't watching my mother and Clarissa's social exile from afar. It was the profound peace that settled in my bones. When I realized their chaos could no longer touch my calm, it was succeeding without ever looking back to see if they were watching. That was the moment I knew I was truly free. My journey from a cold Thanksgiving night to a self-made dawn taught me that the most important battles are for our own peace. And true freedom is the moment you stop needing an apology. I know I'm not the only one who has walked this path. In the comments below, I would be honored if you shared one small step you took to build your own dawn, or one piece of advice you'd give to someone just starting their journey. If my story resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of strength and resilience. Your story matters here.